anxiety disorders. I know you've been through the other disorders, psychosis, bipolar, depression, and its management. And today we will have this condition first as a discussion. Okay, to begin with, the objectives for this lecture would be as follows, that at the end of this 1 hour lecture, we would have been able to review the anxiety disorders listed under DSM-5, our Bible, to review the neurobiological processes underlying the core symptoms of anxiety, to correlate the neurobiologic understanding of anxiety disorders with the current psychopharmacologic treatment options, and to compare and contrast the different psychopharmacological and psychotherapeutic options in managing anxiety disorders. We will look at the biological etiologies and also the psychological etiologies. Thus, we have both therapies. The outline would be a review of the anxiety disorders that you had in second year, a review of the neurobiological processes underlying anxiety disorders, pharmacological treatment options for anxiety disorders, the psychotherapies for anxiety disorders, and at the end, a conclusion at the end of the hour. So, to exemplify the particular disorders that we will be discussing and its management, we have a case. AB is a 25-year-old female, if you can read this with me, who sought consult due to recurrent episodes of sudden onset of palpitations, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, trembling of upper extremities, and nausea, occurring at least twice a month for the past 6 months. 6 months. This has been happening whenever she goes outside her house, and she eventually started avoiding going outside the past month due to fear of having another panic attack and is increasingly worried about having another sudden episode. Because of these, she could go to work and continued to stay at home. What could be the differential diagnosis for this case? Okay, so if you look back, we can consider the other disorders that is discussed. But for now, let's look at the anxiety disorders. First, panic disorder. It is defined as having recurrent unexpected panic attacks, which are characterized by abrupt surges of intense fear or discomfort that reaches a peak within minutes, accompanied by at least four of the following physiologic and behavioral symptoms: palpitations, pounding heart, accelerated heart rate, sweating, trembling, shaking, sensation of shortness of breath, smothering, feelings of choking, chest pain or discomfort, nausea, abdominal distress, feeling dizzy and steady, lightheaded or faint, chills or heat sensation, paresthesias, described as numbness or tingling, derealization, depersonalization, fear of losing control or going crazy, and fear of dying. Sometimes you also have to rule out the possibility of psychosis as a differential because the patient feels like they're losing control. Okay, at least one of the attacks has one of these attacks has been followed by 1 month or more of anticipatory fear for another attack and or a significant maladaptive change in behavior related to the attack, such as avoidance of activities deemed related to attacks. The disturbance should also not be due to a substance or accounted for by another mental disorder. So we rule out a substance or mental disorder when we have patients like this. Avoiding the trigger or the fear would in fact already cause another panic attack. Now we go to the second, which is agoraphobia. The term agoraphobia came from the Greek word agora, which means marketplace. The diagnostic criteria include the following: marked fear of at least in two of the five situations using public transportation, being in open spaces like parking lots, marketplace, bridges, endorsed spaces, cinema shops, standing in line or being in a crowd, being outside at home alone. They fear that escape might be difficult and help might not be available, or a person may develop panic-like symptoms, or other incapacitating or embarrassing symptoms, fear of incontinence, fear of falling in the elderly, like so. The agoraphobic situation almost always provoke fear or anxiety. The situations are actively avoided. It requires presence of a companion or endured with intense fear and anxiety. Fear or anxiety is out of proportion to the actual danger posed by the situation or the social cultural context. The fear or the anxiety causes significant impairment and lasts for 6 months. Remember, 6 months or more. If another medical condition is present, the fear, anxiety, or avoidance in itself is excessive. Symptoms are not better explained by another mental disorder, so that has to be ruled out also. Now, let's go to the specific phobias. A phobia is defined as a disturbing fear-mediated avoidance that is out of proportion to the danger posed by a particular situation or object. Moreover, it is dystonic. The patient recognized this as a groundless and irrational fear. The diagnostic criteria shows the following. There is a marked fear, anxiety about a specific object or situation. The phobic object or situation almost always provokes immediate fear or anxiety. The object or the situation is actively avoided or endured with intense fear or anxiety. The fear anxiety is out of proportion to the danger posed by the object situation and to the social cultural context. The symptoms last there 6 months or more. Once again, the fear or anxiety causes significant distress or impairment in function. Symptoms are not better explained by another mental disorder or substance. Okay. The DSM-5 also includes these distinctive types of specific phobia, namely some of them might really be all new to us, the name of which. There are animal types, natural environment types, blood injection injury type, situational types, and there would be other types, including loud sounds, costumed characters, situations that may lead to vomiting or choking. Okay, so when you say natural environment, you mean height, storms, and water. The blood injection injury means needles, invasive medical procedures. Situational, like airplane rides, elevators, and enclosed spaces. So yung mga claustrophobic. Now, these are terms traditionally classified according to specific fear by means of Greek or Latin prefixes. These are some specific phobias. Asymmetry-phobia, asymmetrical things. So they keep fixing and fixing the objects. Bibliophobia, books. Pyrophobia, and mysophobia, germs or bacteria. Pyrophobia for fire. The rest would be nomophobia, phone being out of service, having no change, having no credit, cell phones not giving the service. Spectrophobia, fear of mirrors or one's own reflection. Atrachebutyrophobia, peanut butter sticking on the roof of the mouth. Have you ever had one like this? Triskaidekaphobia, fear of number 13. So if you notice in buildings and elevators, walang number 13. Philophobia, the fear of falling in love. Wow. Okay. The next in the classification of anxiety disorders would be the social anxiety disorder, or otherwise called social phobia. But this is better called the social anxiety disorder. This is characterized by the fear of social situations, including situations that involve scrutiny or contact with strangers. Individuals with this disorder are fearful of embarrassing themselves in social situations. For example, having a conversation, meeting unfamiliar people, or performing in front of other people. The fear is of the embarrassment that may occur in situations and not the situation itself. It may occur in the situation and not the situation itself. So yung mga may performance anxiety, no? Okay, some of which was is an example. Social anxiety disorders diagnostic criteria include: there is a marked fear or anxiety about one or more social situations in which the person is exposed to possible scrutiny by others. There is fear that he or she will act in a way or show anxiety symptoms that will be negatively evaluated. Social situation almost always provoke fear or anxiety. The social situation is avoided or endured with intense fear or anxiety. The fear anxiety is out of proportion to the actual threat posed by the social situation or the social cultural context. Symptoms last for 6 months. Symptoms cause significant distress, impairment in functioning. They are not due to substance or another medical condition and are not better explained by another medical disorder. If a medical condition is present, the fear anxiety is unrelated or excessive. Specifiers should include performance only. For example, the fear is restricted to speaking or performing in public. Now, we have separation anxiety disorder. In children, excessive distress, this disorder is characterized by a level of fear or anxiety regarding separation from parents or primary caregivers, which is beyond developmental expectations. There is pervasive worry that harm will come to a patient upon separation, which leads to severe distress. DSM-5 requires at least 3 symptoms related to excessive worry about separation from a major attachment figure for a period of at least 4 weeks. Worries may take the form of refusal to go to school, that's worrisome, fears and distress upon separation, repeated complaints of physical symptoms like headaches, stomach aches when separation is anticipated, so they somatize, nightmares related to separation issues. However, not only children can be diagnosed with this disorder. Adults can be affected by this disorder as well. So the older the age group is, the more severe the prognosis. It might be a hallmark of a severe depression. Generalized anxiety disorder is another in this classification. It is characterized by sustained and excessive anxiety and worry, accompanied by either motor tension or restlessness. The criteria includes excessive anxiety and worry for at least 6 months about a number of activities or events. There is difficulty in controlling the worry. There are associated 3 or more of the following, which are restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge, easy fatigability, difficulty concentrating, mind going blank, irritability, muscle tension, and sleep disturbance. Symptoms cause significant distress or impairment in function. They are not attributable to effects of a substance or another medical condition, not better explained also by another mental disorder. We have to keep saying that because these symptoms can be very well due to another mental disorder or another medical disorder or a substance. The generalized anxiety disorder most often coexists with another mental disorder, usually social phobia, specific phobia, panic disorder, and depressive disorders. So you have a mixed anxiety disorder. For some, you have a mixed anxiety disorder and depression. For most of our depressive patients, it's easy for them to feel very anxious, and many of our anxiety patients who are going through severe experiences develop in the long run a deep depression. So vice versa. Now, let us talk about the neurobiological processes underlying anxiety disorders. So we talk about here first the biology, meaning the biochemical story, and also the physiologic story, and that will be this. These are some of the neurochemical systems involved in anxiety disorders. The HPI or the hypothalamic Hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is involved, as you see here. For the noradrenergic system, the brain regions would include the locus coeruleus, amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and your prefrontal cortex. And this would be associated with anxiety disorders, excessive activation. Then you have the HPI axis, which includes the hippocampus, the amygdala, the hypothalamus, and your prefrontal cortex. And there you see excessive cortisol release and abnormal feedback. The CRH, or the corticotropin releasing hormone, is involved in this region. The prefrontal and cingulate cortices, amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, bed nucleus of striae terminalis, nucleus accumbens, and prefrontal cortex. And you'd see persistently increased CRH concentration. For the serotonergic system, that would be located in the dorsal raphe nuclei, amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex. Then associated with low activity of the postsynaptic 5-HT1A receptors in, in, in panic disorders and separation anxiety disorders. Next, you have the GABA, your GABA aminobutyric acid, which is in the substantia nigra, globus pallidus, hypothalamus, periaqueductal gray matter, hippocampus, amygdala, and anterior cingulate, and found reduced GABA A and benzodiazepine binding in panic disorders, reduced GABA levels in panic disorders, a possible imbalance between tonic GABAergic inhibition and glutamate mediated excitation. Now, about glutamate, which is found in your amygdala, hippocampus, and frontal and cingulate cortices, associated with a possible imbalance between tonic GABAergic inhibition and glutamate mediated excitation in panic disorders. Then we have associated with abnormal peripheral levels of neurosteroids in panic disorder, possibly in generalized anxiety disorders and separation anxiety disorders also. Now, your AVP, or your arginine vasopressin, found in the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus, septum hippocampus, and cortex, that's where it's located, associated with single nucleotide polymorphism in AVP V1B receptor gene linked to panic disorders. Now, your dopaminergic system, where it's found in the amygdala, the nucleus accumbens, and prefrontal cortex, associated with excessive mesocortical dopamine release and high dopamine in prefrontal cortex. Okay, so which slide are we on now? 22. Okay, so the next neurochemical system is your NPY, the neuropeptide Y, which is found in the amygdala, hippocampus, brainstem, nucleus accumbens, locus coeruleus, and hypothalamus, associated with low neuropeptide Y levels in PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, possibly in anxiety disorders. Galanin is found in your prefrontal cortex, amygdala, hippocampus, locus, and locus coeruleus, associated with galanin G polymorphism, associated with panic disorders and only in women. Now, the next would be the CCK, which is found in your cerebral cortex, hippocampus, amygdala, caudate putamen, thalamus, and hypothalamus, associated with lower CSF levels of CCK in panic disorders. The next system would be, so there are several neurosystems, and not all of these are well studied. But to name all of these is, the next would be oxytocin, which is found in your hypothalamus, the ventral tegmental area, and your amygdala, associated with oxytocin gene receptor polymorphism, associated with increased risk for anxiety in individuals with early life stress. The next system would be your endocannabinoid system, which is found in the prefrontal cortex, your hypothalamus, amygdala, and your hippocampus, associated with the dysregulation of endocannabinoid signaling. Okay. So, yeah. Then we go to the physiology, which largely involved by the autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetics and your sympathetics. The stimulation of the autonomic nervous system causes cardiovascular, muscular, gastrointestinal, and respiratory symptoms. You know, the flight, fight, and freeze uh, um, concept, which is actually what this is about. The ANS, or the autonomic nervous system, of some patients with anxiety disorder, especially those with panic disorder, exhibit increased sympathetic tone, adapt slowly to repeated stimuli, and respond excessively to moderate stimuli. Okay, now let's go to the major neurotransmitters. Your major neurotransmitters would be norepinephrine, serotonin, and GABA. So we do biochemical now. Generally, theories about the role of norepinephrine and anxiety disorders describe affected patients as having poorly regulated noradrenergic system with occasional bursts of activity, and studies have also shown that some patients have elevated CSF or urinary levels of the noradrenergic metabolite NHPG. Different types of acute stress result in increased 5-HT turnover in the prefrontal cortex, nucleus accumbens, amygdala, and lateral hypothalamus, which may reflect increased metabolism of serotonin. Studies have shown that patients with anxiety disorders have abnormal functioning of their GABA A receptors, which is supported by the efficacy of benzodiazepines, which enhance activity at GABA A receptor for anxiety disorders. Okay, so the treatment's primary goals would be control of symptoms, prevent or at least minimize recurrence or relapse. So that would mean we address this by giving psychiatric treatment in the form of pharmacotherapy and psychotherapy. Now let's discuss the pharmacologic treatment options for anxiety disorders. These are the major classes of drugs that are used in the pharmacologic treatment of anxiety disorders. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, exert their therapeutic effects through serotonin reuptake inhibition with little effect on reuptake of norepinephrine and dopamine. This increases synaptic concentration of serotonin selectivity, which explains why they have the most favorable safety profile among the serotonergic agents used with anxiety disorders. So this is so popularly used, your SSRIs, these days. Serotonin and norepinephrine inhibitors blocks neuronal serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake transporters, which increases synaptic concentrations of these neurotransmitters. They are considered dual reuptake inhibitors like tricyclic antidepressants, or TCAs, but lack affinity to muscarinic, histaminergic, and alpha and beta adrenergic receptors, which makes them have a more favorable safety profile compared to your TCAs. So medyo hindi na ginagamit ang TCAs lately. Okay, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, which we don't quite use anymore in our practice, inactivate monoamine oxidases, which are enzymes that degrade monoamine neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, and tyramine, which in turn increases availability of these neurotransmitters. Benzodiazepines, which we largely use for our anxiety disorder patients, act as an agonist at the GABA A receptor, activating all three GABA benzodiazepine sites of the receptor, which opens the chloride channels and reduces the rate of neuronal and muscle firing, and consequently induce sedative, hypnotic, your sleep-inducing, anxiolytic, anti-anxiety agents, your anticonvulsants, and muscle relaxant effects. We'll go to those medications in a while. These are examples of medication in each drug class. Examples of SSRIs include fluoxetine, sertraline, escitalopram, paroxetine, and fluvoxamine. Your SNRIs include duloxetine and venlafaxine. Tricyclic antidepressants, your TCAs, include clomipramine, imipramine, and amitriptyline. MAOIs include transcyclopromine, isocarboxazid, and phenelzine, while benzodiazepines include midazolam, alprazolam, clonazepam, and diazepam, to name a few. Benzodiazepines have the most rapid onset of action against panic, so we use it when needed and easily they can help the patient, often within the first week. They can be used as first agent, while a serotonergic drug is slowly titrated to the therapeutic dose. So first you give the benzo and then you slowly bring it down. Now, generally, in most anxiety disorders, treatment with benzodiazepines may last for 2 to 6 weeks or 4 to 12 weeks in panic disorders, and they can be tapered slowly over 1 to 2 weeks. So tapered in 1 to 2 weeks as the level of your SSRI is going up, okay, for maintenance. It's slowly tapered for over 1 to 2 weeks or 4 to 10 weeks in panic disorders to avoid withdrawal symptoms, while the serotonergic drug is continued as maintenance. However, they have potential use for dependence, cognitive impairment, and abuse, especially after long-term treatment, your benzodiazepines. When giving benzodiazepines, patients should not drive or operate dangerous equipment due to sedating effects and abstain from alcohol and other CNS depressants because it might potentiate and can lead to accidents. So you have to warn your patients and educate them about these precautions. Okay, all SSRIs are equally effective for anxiety disorders. However, safety profile and specific characteristics of each medication should be considered in choosing the specific SSRI. Paroxetine has sedative effects and calm patients immediately, which lead to greater compliance and less discontinuation symptoms. But, but its potential for including weight gain must be considered. Patients with anxiety disorders, especially panic disorders, might be sensitive to the activating effects of SSRIs, particularly your fluoxetine, which is the highest risk. So, or they should be given initially at small doses and always titrated up slowly. Although SSRIs has the best has the best safety profile among antidepressant classes, general side effects include anxiety during the first week of treatment, sleep disturbances like insomnia, vivid dreams, bruxism, restless legs, drowsiness, lightheadedness, and nausea, diarrhea and GI substances, sexual dysfunction, emotional blunting, anticholinergic side effects like dry mouth and QTC prolongation should be observed, should be watched out for. Other relatively uncommon side effects may include yawning, extrapyramidal symptoms, hematologic disturbances, electrolyte and glucose disturbances, endocrine side effects, and increased prolactin and galactorrhea. So we have to have a baseline test before we give them these medications to be sure. Discontinuation of can occur following the sudden interruptions, reduction, or discontinuation of antidepressant medications. Okay. Now let's go to the SSRIs. Isa-isahin na natin. The following table shows the additional okay. The following table shows the additional binding receptor capacity, notable adverse effects, and notable indications among anxiety disorders of SSRIs, fluoxetine, sertraline, and paroxetine. Paroxetine in particular should be avoided during pregnancy as it can cause birth defects, especially septal defects, making it a pregnancy category D drug. So danger. Fluoxetine has the longest half-life, 4 to 6 days, but its active metabolite has a half-life of 7 to 9 days. Sertraline has a half-life of 26 hours, but its less active metabolite has a half-life of 3 to 5 days. Half-lives of escitalopram, paroxetine, and fluvoxamine are 27 to 32 hours, 22 hours, and 15 hours. Again, escitalopram, paroxetine, and fluvoxamine are 27 to 32 hours, 21 hours, and 15 hours, respectively. More about your SSRIs. One is your fluvoxamine, or we have one of the brand names, which is Voxamine. This table shows the additional binding receptor capacity, notable adverse effects, and notable indications among anxiety disorders of SSRIs, fluvoxamine, and escitalopram. So you see the binding receptor, your sigma-1 receptor, and the GIT side effects and notable indications would be as follows. Panic disorder, social phobia, generalized anxiety disorder, and your highest drug interaction. Well, the most popularly used lately would be your Lexapro. It is best tolerated. It's the best tolerated. Or escitalopram as a generic. It's non-sedating, but some of our patients say they do get sleepy with it, but it's known to be non-sedating. It's best tolerated among the SSRIs in that it has the least drug interactions. Generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and would it mostly be its use. So you have the highest in drug interactions, which is your fluvoxamine. Let me just backtrack a bit. I think I failed to mention. Well, these are the indications for the following meds: Prozac, fluoxetine, and your sertraline. Okay. There's no mention of use in children. We mostly use sertraline and escitalopram for children. So, okay. Next. The following table shows the notable adverse effects and notable indications again of venlafaxine and duloxetine. The notable side effects of venlafaxine are nausea, BP elevation, nervousness, sexual side effects, headache, constipation, anorexia. So you're treating your patient with depression and it comes out because of the medications, their sexual desires or appetite is lowered, so they worry about that too and adds up to their depression. So you have to deal with that. Some of its indication, venlafaxines, will be GAD or generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, chronic pain syndromes. Duloxetine is known for its addressing neuropathic pain. It's the first drug approved for diabetic DM or diabetes neuropathic pain. Oh, I failed to mention the notable side effects would be nausea, constipation, anorexia, BP elevation, and increased FBS and HbA1c. Okay, so we're halfway through or more than halfway through. So let's go to more of the TCAs or more of your pharmacotherapy for anxiety disorders, which is, as I mentioned, your TCAs. They're not considered as first-line agents anymore. But I was in training when we used to use only that. There were no SSRIs then. It is due to the higher risk of adverse effects compared to SSRIs. Among the TCAs, clomipramine and imipramine are the most effective in treating panic disorders, and also they're treated for OCD. However, slow upward titration should be done. Slow upward titration should be done to avoid overstimulation, and full clinical benefit will not be seen until 8 to 12 weeks of treatment. So we have to make that known to our patient. Most of these medications are, long working and slow, but it's better slow but sure. We always say we start low and we go slow until we see the effect, the good effect, and we stop when we see the side effects. General side effects include include seizure threshold changes, anticholinergic effects, and potential cardiac problems. Now, your MAUIs appear less likely to cause overstimulation, but may require at least 8 to 12 weeks of treatment before benefit is seen. There is also a need for dietary restrictions, the avoidance of tyramine-rich food like cheese, making its use limited in anxiety disorders. Phenelzine is more commonly used in anxiety disorders with doses ranging between 45 to 90 milligrams per day. Potential side effects include orthostatic hypotension, insomnia, weight gain, edema, sexual dysfunction, and tyramine-induced hypertensive crisis when taken with tyramine-rich food or sympathomimetic amines such as ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, or dextromethorphan. So that explains why there's lesser use of this. It's not those that are used before is not in the country anymore. So then we go to more other medications. We do use antipsychotics, anticonvulsants for very difficult cases of anxiety as an adjunct, and it's not recommended for initial therapy. They may be used in treatment-resistant patients. However, we have another medication, quetiapine, or its brand would be many, but the initiator would be your Seroquel. It's a second-line treatment for anxiety disorders. We use it now as a second-line treatment for generalized anxiety disorder, and we use this at a very low dose, usually given at bedtime to also help our patients who are anxious to be able to go to sleep. Okay. So, your buspirone is another medication not available in the country but worth mentioning. It can be an option for treatment of GAD. It works as an agonist and partial agonist on serotonin receptor and an agonist and antagonist for dopamine D2 receptor. The dose is usually initiated 15 milligrams per day, but efficacy is noted at 30 milligrams per day with maximum dose of 60. Common side effects include nausea, dizziness, insomnia, and no weight gain, no sexual dysfunction, no discontinuation symptoms. Efficacy is usually noted at the second to the fourth week of treatment. Sad to say, buspirone is so good for many of our conditions, but still not available in the Philippines. Okay, the other medications that can be given to patients for anxiety disorders include beta blockers. They may be useful in specific phobia and generalized anxiety disorder, especially when associated with panic attacks. However, they are more widely used in social phobia, specifically for performance type. Okay, they are more widely used in social phobia, specifically your performance type, your beta blocker. Okay? The most common use of beta blockers for anxiety are propranolol, 20 to 40 milligrams, and atenolol, 50 to 100 milligrams, which are usually taken 1 hour before performance. So you met this medication already in your cardiovascular text readings or lectures, used also for if the patient is hypertensive, to regulate the pulse rate or the heart rate. Another medication, which is not really hitting the symptom itself, but it can also help, would be your antihistaminics. You know, they're used for itchiness of our patient, for any rashes, because it can also cause sleepiness, right? Your antihistamines, your histamine receptors are hit. So hydroxyzine can be used for acute treatment of generalized anxiety disorder. However, if you compare them to the other effects of your benzodiazepine, it's very low in comparison. So For some patients, it's helpful, especially when they're already able to get sleep. Little evidence regarding these long-term effects is not showing. There's very little evidence regarding long-term effects. Okay, so yeah. So these are the recommendations for each of the medications that we discussed. Your SSRIs and SNRIs are your first line for GAD, also for your PD or your panic disorder, and for your separation anxiety disorders. Your TCAs would be your second line, most definitely. In fact, it's in the practice now, we almost don't consider this. But if it's the one available, like in some areas, then we do. So for panic disorder, second line and SAD, MAUIs can be a second line in treatment. And then Urema or Moclobemide, like your MAUIs, also have second line use for SADs. And agomelatine, which is new in the country, buspirone and mirtazapine, which we also use largely. It causes sleepiness, no? So it's very good for patients who are anxious and can't sleep. They're second line in use. Benzodiazepines can be second line, and you know already its limitations. Uh, Excuse me. Uh, Elaine, I don't know if I'm being heard. Can you hear me? Okay, ba? Yes, I'm hearing you. Sige, kasi there was a sign. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. So there you see the age is catching up. Okay, so your quetiapine is second line. However, we're beginning to use much of it. Much of it. Pregabalin is also causing some, it causes for some patients sleepiness also, it relaxes them. So we can try it for second line. So you use this as the more popularly used would be your SSRIs, NSRIs, and your benzodiazepines, but be very cautious about its use. Okay, because of the possibility of habituation or addiction. Okay, so our recommendations for specific phobia would be your SSRIs. There are a lot of it that we mentioned. And by the way, each generic of it have already a lot of other branded names. So brands, no? So the cost is not too much to worry about since all of these other generics and other brands came. Your SSRIs may be helpful, but psychotherapies remain as first choice. Okay? So we're going to discuss that later, your psychotherapy and your agoraphobia. You treat the panic attacks. There are some patients with panic attacks and plus agoraphobia. So it can really be very difficult and debilitating for the patients when they cannot be on their own and they cannot go out of their houses. So this table shows the different anti-panic drugs and the recommended starting and maintenance dosages, while Table 2 shows the common medications used for recurrent anxiety with their initial and daily doses. So there, this is in your textbook. So it's neatly arranged there. So there. Okay? So these are the general principles when starting pharmacologic treatment. Okay. In anxiety disorders, first you have to rule out underlying medical conditions or possible substances that can cause anxiety symptoms, as management will entail addressing the medical condition or detoxification and removal of involved substances first and foremost. Some of the common conditions that can present as anxiety symptoms include thyroid and other endocrine disorders, as well as cardiac and respiratory problems. So you do a thyroid function test, endocrine works if necessary, yeah, and your ECG and maybe your chest X-rays. Among substances, stimulants, stimulants, and other illicit drugs are commonly known to present anxiety symptoms. Once other medical conditions and substance intake have been ruled out, you can start your pharmacotherapy for for anxiety disorders and start with a low dosage and do slow upward titration. Psychoeducation regarding the expected benefits and adverse effects, as well as the duration of treatment and other treatment options, is important. Now, pharmacotherapy treatment should generally be continued for 8 to 12 weeks at optimum dose to assess efficacy and should be maintained for at least 6 months. For panic disorder, though, it may take longer, 8 to 12 months, but at least 30 to 90% of patients with panic disorder may have relapse when medication is discontinued and may require lifelong treatment. What with their stressors that trigger these attacks also. For generalized anxiety disorder, the duration of treatment is usually 6 to 12 months, but 60 to 80% may relapse over the course of the next year when medication is discontinued. Now, the serotonin syndrome is worth mentioning. Once the patient is started on any serotonergic agent, monitor carefully for side effects, particularly for this syndrome. Concurrent administration of serotonergic agents with MAOIs and tryptophan and lithium carbonate can cause this syndrome, which is considered severe and possibly fatal. Hence, once the signs and symptoms are identified, this should be considered an emergency. So stop the offending agent immediately. Give supportive care. You can do nitroglycerin, cyproheptadine, methotrexate, cooling blankets, benzodiazepines, anticonvulsants, mechanical ventilation, and paralyzing agents. Now, for psychotherapies, which is a second line of treatment, just as important for anxiety disorders, we do supportive psychotherapy. These are the commonly used psychotherapies in the treatment of anxiety disorders. Cognitive therapy, behavior therapy, psychodynamic, insight-oriented psychotherapy, interpersonal psychotherapy, and virtual therapy. Okay. So, lost my voice there. For your psychotherapeutic management, mhm, sorry, I am, uh, sorry, Elaine. My girl Friday is here, so it's not moving. Yan. Oh, I lost no fingers. So, this line of treatment, supportive therapy, may involve reassurance and providing comfort to the patient, and it makes use of therapeutic alliances to promote adaptive coping in patients with anxiety disorder. Adaptive defenses are encouraged and strengthened, and maladaptive ones are discouraged. The therapist may even offer advice regarding the anxious behavior. Cognitive behavior therapy is based on the premise that maladaptive behavior anxiety is secondary to the distortions in how people perceive themselves and how others perceive them. The two major foci of cognitive therapy for anxiety disorder are instruction about the patient's false beliefs regarding anxiety-provoking situation, and informing about anxiety. In panic disorders, for example, the instruction about false beliefs center on the patient's tendency to misinterpret bodily sensations as indicating impending panic attacks, doom, or death. The information about panic attacks include explanations that when panic attacks occur, they are time limited and not life-threatening. In social phobia, cognitive therapy is used to teach patients how to accurately appraise people's reactions to them and to rely less on the approval of others for maintaining their self-esteem. In behavioral therapy, the basic assumption is that change can occur without development of psychological insight into underlying causes. Techniques include positive and negative reinforcement, relaxation techniques, flood implosion, systematic desensitization, graded exposure, response prevention, stop thought, modeling, hypnosis. Behavioral therapy is the most studied and most effective treatment for specific phobias. The most commonly used increasing techniques for phobias is a systematic desensitization. In systematic desensitization, the patient with a phobia imagines a series of increasingly anxiety-provoking situations while in a state of deep relaxation. Modeling is based on the theory that fear may be learned through initiating the actions of others, known as vicarious learning, but this also applies to learning how to conquer fear by limiting the actions of others. Fearful patients are exposed to demonstrations of other persons interacting fearlessly with a phobic object. In flooding, the client is exposed to the source of phobia at full intensity. This should be used as a last resort when graduated exposure has failed to resolve the phobia. Other techniques include positive and negative reinforcement, response prevention, thought stopping, panic control therapy, self-monitoring, and hypnosis. Psychoanalytic view of anxiety postulates that anxiety sometimes signals unconscious turmoil. In psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, insight-oriented psychotherapy, the goal is the development of insight into the psychological conflicts that, if unresolved, can manifest as symptomatic behavior, example, anxiety. This enables the patient to understand the origin of anxiety, the phenomenon of secondary gain, and the role of resistance, and enables them to seek healthy ways of dealing with anxiety-provoking stimuli. The general goal is to increase anxiety tolerance rather than to eliminate it. Hence, they may continue to experience anxiety even after the termination of psychotherapy. So, anxiety tolerance, no? But their increased ego mastery allows them to use the symptoms to signal, to reflect an internal struggle, and to expand their insight and understanding. Interpersonal psychotherapy. Interpersonal skills training for social anxiety disorder has been shown to be effective. The assumption in interpersonal therapy is that such patients have interpersonal deficits that contribute to their anxiety and lack the skills to interact with others effectively. The result is that patients experience more of the punishments and less of the rewards from social interaction than most other people. Virtual therapy is particularly useful in agoraphobia, specific phobia, social anxiety disorder, and especially for situations that are not easily reproduced inside the clinician's office, like flying and extreme heights. Insights and conclusion. Okay, we're going down, ending already. There are different treatment options for anxiety disorders, but management plan for patients with anxiety disorders should be individualized and carefully chosen. However, it should be noted that in general, combination of psychopharmacotherapy and psychotherapy its combination has been shown to produce superior benefits to either psychopharmacotherapy or psychotherapy alone in the management of anxiety disorders. So let's have this case again. Okay. I am already ending my lecture, this first part. It's a 2-hour lecture on anxiety disorders and its management. We just reviewed the disorders and went through in detail uh, the possible psychopharmacologic and psychotherapeutic treatment. These are the references that have been used in our lectures that the department uses. So this is a departmental lecture. And the second hour, I know you have questions. The second hour, we will be dealing with cases and vignettes that will do our exercise on what possible anxiety disorder, what are our differentials, and we can also talk about management. It will be a case-based lecture. Okay? So, I think we achieved. Yeah, let me just go through our objective. So, at the end of this 1 hour lecture, we have reviewed the anxiety disorders listed under DSM-5. We have reviewed the neurobiological processes underlying the core symptoms of anxiety that has been discussed in our second year lectures. We correlated the neurobiological understanding of anxiety disorders with the current psychopharmacologic treatment contrasts, and at the end, we were able to compare and contrast the different psychopharmacological and psychotherapeutic options in managing anxiety disorders. Okay, so, uh, Elaine? Elaine? So, my girl Friday. So, I see your heart, but you see me, I don't see you. Wala. Okay, so I know that was tough. That was so much. You can go on, I mean, strengthen what you learned today. And it's all in the text. It's in the textbook. Our second part, we will deal with exercises and cases so that if this is coming out quite confusing for you, we hope to clarify your questions when we go to the second hour of anxiety disorders and management. Ano ba ngayon? 23? October 30, before we say goodbye for our vacation. Okay? Sige. Kasi 31, walang pasok sa 31, ano? Yes? Wala. Wala yata. Okay, bye! Bye!
Thank you po,
Thank you
Doc.
po, Doc.
Thank you!
Thank you, Doc.